Hello, hello, and welcome everyone to The Way Through. I'm your host, Bonnie Worth, and of course, we are taking a look at life together. We're looking at life in terms of what holds us back from living a life that we truly love to live, what we truly desire to be living. We look at, our conversations always incorporate, how do we unravel those barriers, those blocks, the limitation, so that we're able to become more conscious and participate with what plays out in the future for our lives, which is a big, big piece of what the show today is even all about. We take a look at it through the lens of mediumship, through metaphysics, and of course, conscious co creation. So we're putting ourselves really into, or my intention is to help you and to help me even to put ourselves really into the driver's seat of our lives so that we're changing some of the limit, like I said, the limitation, the blocks, the barriers that are preventing us from really, really engaging with a life that aligns, a life that is about our truth, our authenticity, and being in a state of being more empowered as opposed to really kind of struggling and trying to, get through the challenges. This show is a way of helping you to find your way through that. So, here we are. Hello and happy new year. We are right at the start of 2025 here together. And I'm sure, like many of you tuning in, I've really been considering what my intentions are for not just this new year, but my intentions for life in general. When we look at it, even from a numerology standpoint, we are in a 9 year, and a nine is all about endings and beginnings. We're wrapping some things up and we're being positioned to make some new empowered choices for our life. And so, this is where, again, we have to take a look at how we're showing up, what our intentions are, and intentions that are more about us than being as the individual of what I want for my life, and instead being positioned in how can we contribute to each other's lives? How do we find our way through the conditions, the challenges that are happening in the world around us, and still and look at, being conscious about our individual roles and how those roles are impacting each other. So when we look at it, I focus on intentions that align to higher experiences of life, and that really is, my focus here as we are in this nine cycle, where we are letting go of what no longer serves, what we're no longer going to tolerate, what we're no longer willing to participate in, and instead looking at, okay, what is it that I want to set as a foundation for moving forward? So here, this is where, again, we want, on today's show, we're going to explore about how can we achieve different results than maybe what we've got in the past. And part of that, of course, is, breaking down some of the cycles, some of the things that have been holding us back, so we can really reclaim our position of taking that driver's seat in our lives. I mean, besides, our egos love control. So, we tend to cling to familiar patterns and routines that give us this false sense of security. But our true empowerment comes from recognizing that we have the ability to steer our experiences, to direct our lives in a way that serves not only of what it's in alignment with the higher self inside of us, but that serves humanity, that where we serve each other, where we are showing up very consciously and understanding that as we create, that we are creating together. So we're taking ultimate self responsibility, and we're creating a united field, so to speak, of those possibilities. So this is really where, we look at what is possible for us in moving forward. The conditions of our world around us, whether we look at that in terms of economic, political, whether it is in terms of some of the other personal challenges that are coming up for ourselves, we feel, many people feel as if this is just how it's going to play out. We fall into a sense of fear, uncertainty, and we have a tendency me to always, go back to what's happened in the past in comparison, or as I said, as a way of clinging on to some of those familiars, so that we have that sense of security or that sense of safety at the face of many unknowns as we look to the future. So when we think of the human experience, and this is where we look at, our shared humanity, that, is really, when you reflect on it, it's marked by cyclical patterns. The patterns that reflect both our psychology, whether that be spiritual psychology, whether that be our intellectual psychology, but really it reflects our psychology and our ontological realities. Now, those ontological realities are really this, bring us into this understanding of how we inherited this. What makes these dimensions of patterns, showing up, and what is our true ability to be able to transform, to recreate, and to have a life that we feel more at peace and at ease with. Not only, especially during times where there seems to be so much, discord in the world around us. I mean, we can think of, we all crave peace, and yet we view around, and we can, very unpeaceful conditions that are our reality. So how do we separate ourselves out from the reality of our life, and really put ourselves, as I said, back into a position where we can find renewal, and we can, instead of being ensnared by repetitive cycles, recycling experiences and emotions that are rooted in the past. How do we are being positioned, even in 2025 here, with this chance to begin again. And this is such an important part of the impact in terms of where our world is going to go. It all comes down to us in terms of our individual choices, and in those choices and how they relate to each other. So when we think of it, from a spiritual level, our existence is deeply intertwined with each other, and deeply intertwined, excuse me, in cycles of renewal and of transformation. And every single thing that plays up in our life is our invitations for us to evolve, invitations for us to have greater experiences with life than what we've had in the past. Excuse me. And yet, it's the weight of our historical content, whether the historical content be in terms of our own emotional landscape, or our historical content as humanity. That residue, the unhealed traumas, the unprocessed experiences, are the very things that anchor us into the iterations of who we used to be, or even as a society of who, I know this was a big part of conversation over, the last few months, and several of my friends, and with, some of my family, where, we look at those previous iterations of life, of things that maybe played out in the 1950s and the 1940s, and here we are in, decades of advancement, and we have the same thing showing up again. It's like the same iterations of life are recycling. So why are they recycling? Not only is this recycling on a personal level, but as I said, we can see it playing out in the greater world stage around us as well. So we cling. I think this is to understand that as human beings, we have a tendency to be past dwellers. We dwell in the past. We are either super afraid of the future, or we're dwelling in the past. And for the most part, when we have been traumatized, when we've been wounded, when we have low self-esteem, when we are filled with a conditioning, or operating in paradigms of limitation, it will cause us to cling to our memories of the past, whether those memories be joyful, whether they be painful, but it really, our constant focus on how it used to be what we wish could have happened differently in the past is the very things that are shaping our narratives, the very thing that shapes our story not only of who we are, but the story of our possibilities. And it's that story where we are subconsciously drawing upon past experiences every time we're focused, every time we're emotionally engaging with something that played out in the past, which inevitably is creating a silent prayer to the universe that is saying, I would like to recreate what I know already. I would like to recreate all of these painful experiences or all these joyful experiences of the past. Now we're recreating based on the past, which means we're not creating and we're not considering who we are now, because who we were in the past was, especially if you've been on a healing journey, you're no longer operating, we're no longer the same. I really love one of the presentations that Wayne Dyer did many, many years ago. God bless his soul for his teachings and the impact that he's had in helping so many of us to move forward in our lives, to consider what plays out and how we're participating in our lives. And through one of the presentations he did, he talked about how we are constantly changing, we're constantly evolving, and that we only need to look at our pictures of who we were in our childhood and who we were in our adolescence. And as we came into adulthood and you begin to look at all of the different ages, all of the different portrayals of you, and that have been a part of your life, to understand how we are recreating and renewing and shifting all the time. And so when we understand that we're no longer the same people that we used to be 20 years ago or 30 years ago, or even more than that, even 2 weeks ago, we're no longer the same person that we were yesterday or even 5 minutes ago. But when we look at constantly moving into orientations about the past, whether that be as human, on an individual level, or as human beings of the things that have happened in our world previously, these are the silent prayers that are going out, and we're telling the universe to recreate what I know and what I've experienced before. Because what I know and what I experienced before is a part of the narrative that we're clinging to. It's a part of what we're hanging on to for a sense of safety in our lives. Because the future, with all of the unknowns, and when we consider even, what's ahead for us, even in 2025, there can be, we can get deadlocked, we can feel very resistant. And so we reflect on the past to say, oh my gosh, I hope this doesn't happen because this played out before. Or the fear generates and the anxiety happens over scenarios or things that we're thinking about that could or might happen, but are not in a foundation of truth. So we want to be very conscientious in what we're giving the universe, because we don't want to keep saying, I want to recreate what I've already done before. What if we change that? And what if we said to the universe, so based on everything that happened previously, but I want to recreate from who I am now, of where I am now in my life, of where I understand in terms of my own worthiness. Okay. Well, that we're going to get deeper into that conversation in just a little bit. So when we look at this, even from this our ontological perspective, we understand that this is our nature of being. It's our nature of existence. And when we are clouded by our past conditioning, we inadvertently are inviting in the same energies and the same situations that we're actually trying to avoid. So this is that recycling that takes place. So not only are we doing with our thought content and these silent prayers to the universe, we are inadvertently even inviting in those same experiences, the same energy of the past. And so to understand, energy can never be created, is never created or destroyed. It can only be transformed. But if we're not actively transforming the energetic conditions as a part of our life as well, then we're calling in what was before. Now, there's various dimensions to our identity, right? So when we look at it, whether it be this identity that's formed through societal expectations, our familial beliefs, our personal traumas, all of that works together to inform our reality. And the universe responds to those vibrations that's emitted in those emotional states, those belief systems that are sitting within the makeup of the paradigms. That often gets reflected back to us. And that's what we begin to use as the patterns. We begin to identify the patterns, and it's really what we wish to escape, except when we're clouded by it and we're stuck in the conditioning and we are, focused on the bad things that could happen in the future based on bad things that happened in the past, we really become disempowered, and those patterns stay active within us. So as you've been tuning into the show, and even if you're someone new who's tuning into the show, I talk a lot about the universe and the energies and the spiritual law of the law of vibration, these creative laws that help, that really, as we begin to understand that everything in the universe is in constant motion, vibrating at different frequencies. And so our thoughts, our emotions all have vibration. And when we're in a negative mindset, or we are operating from limiting beliefs that are dominating our mental and emotional landscape, we are sending those signals out, attracting more of it. So despite our yearning for change, despite the intentions we can set for a new year, or even if you're someone who, still looks towards, instead of intentions, you're setting resolutions, things you're looking to resolve instead of transform, and regardless of, that's a whole different conversation. But despite that yearning for change, when we are harboring these thoughts of inadequacy, when we are operating from a state of feeling like we have no say over anything in our lives, that we are just dealing with the cards that have been dealt, the beds that we've been laying in, all of those things, that keeps us stuck in this loop, a loop of disappointment, a loop of failure. And it's also here that vibrational output is what leads to many people feeling like completely doomed. And we begin surrendering to the belief that our prayers are never going to be answered, or nothing ever works out for us. It only works out for other people. And so instead of surrendering to those beliefs, we need to surrender to possibility and surrender to where we are in this moment, which I'm going to talk to you more about in just a few moments. So we're looking to break free from the cycle. And I mean, this really requires conscious awareness, and a very intentional work. We need to look at our capacity and our power of choice to shift the paradigms, to dismantle the inherited conditioning. And in order to do that, we need to look at the patterns. What no longer serves us? What's no longer, why does this keep happening? How come I find myself in this exact situation again? When we start asking those questions, when we start reflecting, what it's doing is it's creating awareness. And if you've listened to the show before, as I've said, once we have awareness, half of the work is already done, right? Because once we have awareness to our patterns, we become more empowered into an action or a choice point. And these choice points says where now I can take action towards new choices for my life. So this is what I refer to as transformative awareness. This is what illuminates the habitual responses that keep us stuck, and allow there to be more clarity, so that we really can begin again. We really can forge a new path, or have new high level experiences in life, irregardless of the conditions of our reality. Because when we begin to shift and change our internal world, the external, our reality around us, begins to shift and change as well. It doesn't mean it completely obliterates the challenges, the problems of what's happening in the world, but it motivates us to look at what are our behaviors, how are we showing up, and that we can begin to consciously choose how we're acting, how we're acting differently. We're breaking free from those automatic responses of the past, and instead really looking to be very conscientious of how we are contributing, how we are part not only of the problem, but how more importantly we are the solution, irregardless of what's happening in the world around us. So it's a process that requires a lot of courage. And it really, it involves, we've got to step out of the comfort zone. We've got to begin to embrace discomfort and know that every choice, no matter how small, acts as a step towards a more authentic existence. And that as we begin to adopt and alter, and shift the paradigms, our perspective changes. And when our perspective changes, everything else begins to change as well, because now our conversations with the universe have changed, which means now we're attracting to us different results for our life. And which means that ultimately now we're rewiring ourselves. We're reminding ourselves that through our processes, through our emotional responses, that we are paving a way for a future that is more aligned with who we truly are, with the higher self, with the divine existence of our inherent incarnation. So how do we do this? That really becomes, well, it really comes into embracing our power, but embracing our power in the now, even as I say this, this reminds me of, of a story with my youngest. I remember when he was in middle year school, and he had to study for an exam, and it was a social studies exam. And social studies for us here was really looking at what's happened in history in our country, what's happened in history in society, what are the things that happened in the past. And so, from the explorers, finding the countries, forming countries, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, so he had to study for this exam, and he was meeting a lot of resistance with him. And I would just say to him, I said, like, "Hun, you've got to go study. You've got this exam." And he's like, "I don't want to. I don't understand," he said to me. This really stopped me in my tracks. You know how children can often be the voices of wisdom that help to awaken something inside of us? In that moment, he was mine, because he said to me, "I don't understand, Mom, why it is that we need to concentrate and focus and learn about all the things that went wrong in society before now, and why we need to learn and study and memorize so that we've got." He's like, "I'm not saying let's not, think about the people who came before." He goes, "Yes." He goes, "But what about," he goes, "shouldn't we be concentrating more about where we're going as a society? Shouldn't we be more concerned about what's going to play out in the future?" And it really caught me, because I was like, wow, that such wisdom in that, from, the sweet little boy at that time. He's a great man now, but he's a sweet little boy, where it was a challenge inside of him. He couldn't reconcile it inside of himself. And it was creating so much resistance. And he was right. He was right that the focus on looking at what was problematic in society in the past, if you're understanding the teachings of what I've been sharing so far in the show, you understand how we're all contributing to recycling those patterns, to recycling those problems, to recycling those challenges. Because what was being taught in school, and what it was having to learn, was always past oriented. Why? Because we, from an ontological level, are past dwellers. It's where we exist, and we exist there because of our fear-based consciousness. So we want to shift it. So our power really is about in the now. So when we look at throughout spiritual teachings, and we can look to people like Michael Beckwith, Eckhart Tolle. There's many more, but there's one common theme that really emerges from their teachings, is that our inherent power resides in the present moment. The future often calls to us. It beckons. It's like, okay, there's possibility here. And it's essential to understand that our choices are what are laying the groundwork for the future of what is to come. Our engagement with life in the now is what is creating the future. Just like our engagement with the past was recycling the past. So now we have to look at how are we showing up? What thoughts are we cultivating? What beliefs that we hold? Because that's ultimately shaping our reality. It's ultimately shaping who we become and what plays out in our lives in the future. So being intentional in our choices means that we need to be present. We need to this every moment presents this opportunity for transformation. Every moment we have a profound power to choose how we respond to life. It invites us, of course, to take ownership of what's ours, of how it is that we are a part of either the problem or the solution in our lives, that our thoughts and our actions are these seeds that are being planted in the universe, and that's what's going to flourish or become the experiences of tomorrow and of the future. So we want to look at aligning our choices with our highest ideals and actively participating in creating that a future that resonates with our higher self, resonates with what is authentic and what is truth. And when we look at this from what is truth, not based on what's at the core of our existence, what is our divine truth? Not the truth that exists from the ego's identities or the ego's false perception of self based on past conditioning and limitation of the beliefs and the paradigms we've been operating in, but instead looking at how do we separate ourselves out from all of those layers, all of the illusion that's been placed there as a part of the human experience for us, and begin to unravel and move through all of those layers so that we can be more actively creating a future of one that we are truly worthy of. Worthy, and we are all worthy. We never have lost our worthiness. We were born worthy, we continue, we are worthy. That never changes. It's always there. It's just the illusion, the falsehood, the identities, the paradigms, the conditioning that creates us to believe that we are unworthy. Eckhart Tolle, again, if you've ever, his work as well, the book The Power of Now is really a book I really highly recommend that you get for your library, because this is a book that really teaches how the present moment is the only thing that exists. It's the only thing that truly exists, that everything else is outside of us. Everything else doesn't matter. That our awareness, our presence, that when we anchor ourselves into the now, into this is where we unlock our potential. This is our creative power because now we are standing in a position where we know that our thoughts and our beliefs are creating that our interactions with the world around us are creating. And so when we're focusing on the present, we tap into a deeper sense of clarity, a deeper sense of purpose, and now we start propelling ourselves towards that fulfilling future that we've ever only been dreaming about and praying for. So when we engage with life, we're looking at, yeah, we need to understand that what happens mattered. What happened in the past has mattered. It mattered because it was impactful. You matter, I matter, humanity matters. And so it's important for us to reflect upon it, but also remember that to keep our consciousness in the now. It's like when the mind goes to the past, we call it into now. When our mind goes into the future, we call it into now. Because this is where, again, this is what's conducive for the future to unfold in the way that we truly desire it to be. And so when we're in this here, our thoughts become more positive. We're nurturing positive thoughts. We're speaking intentionally, which means we are considerate about what we're going to speak, because when we speak something, we are not just our thoughts plant seeds, but when we speak over our life, we're fueling it through our voice. We're fueling it. As we speak over our life, we are influencing what grows. So we look at this is where, again, interactions that give us the opportunity to be more present, that we can consciously choose to be present, which again, when we're present with each other, we're now having more genuine connection with other people. And we all crave connection as much as, the empaths that are tuning into the world. And you think about how we just want to separate ourselves out from people and we don't want to be around people. And it's too hard and difficult, to be caught up in negative situations. We would rather recoil, retract, turtle, and hide at home under the covers, right? So when understand is that we all require connection. We all require relationships, because it's through these relationships they are the essential piece of our collective evolution, because they show, they trigger, they cause a reaction, but that triggering a reaction is really this opportunity, this positioning in this present moment where we have a power to choose as we've never chosen before for our lives. So yes, we dwell in the past, we have future anxieties, and we can allow that state of mind to really govern our lives. And so inadvertently, what happens is, of course, we're limiting our potential. So the present moment is this opportunity to shift it all, and we can consciously and positively reinforce empowering belief systems, begin to speak from a place of what is conviction in terms of what we are worthy and deserving of. And this is how we can really begin to transcend some of the limiting states, some of the barriers that are keeping us stuck and blocked from getting the results we want out of life. So this is really, believing first off, in this is what creates the possibility for it. So if you don't believe this is going to work, well, guess what? The universe is going to make you right and it's not going to work. But if you can believe in what's possible, that's what really hinges in terms of our ability to engage with life in a very constructive and very aligned way. And so when we foster this, we begin to awaken our innate power, this innate power that we have inside of us, that where we can really begin to manifest the life that we truly envision. And when we claim our power in the now, we are really harnessing potential, and we're transforming, which means we're changing the way that life is for us, which means we are also helping to pave the way and change what can become possible for others as well. It's like the ultimate permission card. When we give ourselves permission for anything, we are giving permission for someone else to be inspired, for someone else, more importantly, to awaken to their own innate power, based on this alignment, these intentions that are so aligned with our true desires, that affirm our worthiness, that help us to know and understand that, irregardless of what's playing out and happening in the world around us, that we are ultimately at the driver's seat of our life. We have the keys. We are, our how we're thinking, how we're being, we're putting it into the ignition. That's what, we're driving this vehicle through life. So we need to understand that we can change a lot of what it plays out and happens in our lives in very insurmountable, like just beautiful, beautiful ways. And we can also, irregardless of how insurmountable the challenges of the world seem, for us, this unknown atmosphere that exists for us, that really is keeping us so feeling imbalanced and feeling out of control, that we understand that when we want to get into the driver's seat and we want to understand that our power our power is in the present moment. How do we remain present? How do we stay here? Well, that's a good part of our next part of our conversation. So this really, it's like once you've established and know that this is where it's at, that now becomes this opportunity to fall into the here and the now. And we do that one with our mind, being able to remind ourselves the only thing that matters is right now. I am here. I am safe now. I'm safe right in this moment. I am safe. In this moment, all is well. In this moment, all things are possible. We have to remind ourselves of it. The more that we speak, whether we're thinking it or speaking over our life about being present, the only moment that matters is now. In this moment, I am safe. The more that we do this, we are creating, we are those future orientations. We're creating invitations for that to play out. It's like saying, irregardless of what is happening in the world around me, I am choosing in this moment to only be at peace. I'm choosing peace. I'm being at peace. And so as we begin to have these thoughts, we begin to regulate our nervous system. Now, the next thing that comes into play here is really an understanding the healing power of our breath, of breathing. When we are in past experiences, when we are in that recycling and we're focusing on the past, if that ever happens for you, just pay attention. What's going on with your body? You're going to see that the cells of your body, your whole muscular system is contracting or is tense because we are repositioning ourselves in old energy that is no longer aligned. We are repositioning ourselves in something that's done and over and cannot be changed and is of lower frequency and vibration for our own evolution. It's out of alignment. So it creates a tension inside of us. When we are future oriented, when we can fall into fear base, we feeling like we're incompetent, it's not possible. We have all of these narratives that begin to show up and saying, oh, that's too grand, that's never going to happen. I'm and we convince ourselves, in those ways to not even go for it, to not even take the risk, all of those ways that we talk ourselves out of it. When that happens, there's actual tension in our body. There's tension in our body. It's like our whole cellular reality is reacting to the falsehood and our false perception, the falsehood of the past and the falsehood of our limitation of the future. And so when we get into constriction and there's tension and agitation in our whole system as a result, but it's actually through our breath that we can begin to create relaxation, and we want to relax the cells of our body. We don't want to just open our hearts. I mean, we want to have open hearts. Don't get me wrong. We want to open our heart to each other. We want to be open hearted and we want to be sharing love and light and all that juicy stuff. But we also want to relax the cells of our body. When we are relaxing and through our breath, when we just move into an intentional breath, just to inhale I always like to do four, cycles of four, inhaling for four and exhaling for four, slowing down, allowing for there to be a more natural rhythm of breath. The more that we inhale into our system, the more that we relax. The more that we relax, the more that we invite healing. Our breath is so healing. It is our life force energy. This energy that as we draw it in helps to create for us. It helps to create with us, that our breath is a part of this co-creation. And when we are restricted in our cellular body, our physical body, when we're creating a sense of restriction and tension and agitation, we are creating restriction with the universe as well. So when we breathe, when we find and become conscious of our breath in these moments, remember, I'm safe in this moment. All is well in this moment. This is the moment that only matters. I'm here, I'm now. All I can control is right here, right now. We breathe, we relax, do deep breaths, inhaling, exhaling. Look at slowing it down, a really big inhale and a really big exhale. Give your whole system the opportunity to surrender to the moment. And then it's from here that we begin to initiate, whether those be initiate through affirmations, whether we initiate through connection with the unseen world, we begin having conversations and invoking higher power or our guides, our angels, whatever your belief systems are, where you begin to call upon that help, that support from the unseen world. And we can ask, in those moments. And as we're calling in those higher dimensions in that way, really truly begin to relax our nervous system. Everything falls away, and the cells of our body begin to respond to higher vibration. They begin to respond to more light coming into our system. And when there's more light, there's less dark, right? You can think about that even when you think of a dark room. I mean, you walk in, it's nighttime in your house and it's dark. The moment you walk into a room and you put on the light switch, it's like, oh, look, there's light, right? It's the same inside of us. We've got light and dark. We know and understand that. And that by being present in the now, by reaffirming that all is well, that we are safe in this moment. The only moment that matters is right now. How I am consciously choosing to respond to the situation matters. How I'm thinking about this person, about this situation matters because it's forming the foundation of the future. How I'm thinking about myself in this moment matters. And when the thoughts are not in alignment, when the thoughts are not unkind and they are negative and they are dark and they are limiting, we're not in our power. So this is where, again, we can recreate this in the moment. We begin to calm our mind by having more higher vibrational thoughts. We're bringing in breath to calm our whole system and open ourselves to receiving higher ways of living and being. The more we breathe, the deeper we breathe, the more room we make for more light. And that as we begin to do this, we begin to activate and begin to raise our vibration. We begin to move out of what has been limiting, what has been these dormant, repetitive cycles, and we put ourselves back into that driver's seat, right? So as a result of this, I mean, there's so many ways to work with this. This is just a brief way of, I mean, I would love to spend more time with you, of course, to dive into this even more. But I just hope that something in that I've shared is going to help you to begin to bring you into presence. Pay attention. Where you are right now is what matters. What thoughts are you having? Are there better thoughts that you can have? What better feeling thoughts can you have? And breathe, relax, allow yourself to receive what is these vibrational frequencies that are going to allow that emotional content of the past to drop away and basically raise you up and align yourself with experiences that are resonant with your authenticity, experiences that are resonant with purpose, experiences that are resonant and impactful for all of humanity, right? Where we look at just understanding we can unburden ourselves. We can unburden ourselves, and we can unburden ourselves from that historical weight that's there. We can unburden ourselves from the fear that's generated over future possibilities of what might happen, the bad that might happen, what could go wrong, what we're in for. It doesn't matter, what words we use there. But we begin to unburden ourselves from that as well, and we begin to engage with the universe in a different way. And so instead of projecting a silent prayer of stagnation, a silent prayer that says, bring to me everything that I already know because that's safer, Bring to me all of the pain and wounds of my past because I know how to work with that instead. Right? Instead of projecting that silent prayer, we're now positioning ourselves to craft this, this is an invitation now for growth, for transformation, for healing, for creativity, for abundance. And so when we look at 2025 as this cycle, this completion cycle for humanity, this completion cycle for us, this opportunity to begin again, says this isn't just a mere equation to repeating what previously played out. It's this profound opportunity that we have for expansive evolution. And it's all because, requires us to dismantle the inherited conditioning, that what keeps us tethered to limitation, to the beliefs, so that we collectively can begin to create a new reality together, one that honors the past. We want to honor what passed, but what to be also liberated from the confines of what was. And the choice to evolve lies in each of us embracing the transformative power that exists for all of us, that and which is going to allow all of our souls to thrive, and in very, in expansive ways, in renewal, in authenticity, in a cycle that is something that, as history unfolds for us, that we can look back and be really super proud of how we contributed, of how we served, of how we helped, even in a time where everything felt like it might be absolutely hopeless for us. All right, sweet friends. Well, thank you so much for tuning in to today's show. I hope something that I've said today really helps to empower you to find your way through whatever may be playing out in your life. And of course, if there's something in this episode that really, really helped and supported you, please feel free to comment, send me the emails. I love when I get the emails. Thank you so much to all those who've been sending them in, and really, helping to give purpose to each and every one of these conversations we have every week. So thank you for being here. And until next time, bye for now.